you ever look out into the vast sea of the universe and challenge even your own imagination? You don't think we're alone, do you? When you hear that the government is doing something, you always believe it, don't you? We are your third eye. This is Chasing Prophecy. Challenging your beliefs and pushing the boundaries of your imagination. If it's unexplained, we're talking about it. Whether you're a believer or a skeptic, we cover everything from political mayhem and tyranny to alien abductions and paranormal phenomena. You are not alone. This is the Chasing Prophecy radio program. And now your hosts, Jenny Nicasio, Sean Kelly, and Michael Anthony.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Chasing Prophecy. Jenny Nicasio, she's still on the sabbatical. Hope to have her back soon. But Chasing Prophecy is on UPRN Radio, 105.3 New Orleans, 107.7 Mississippi, and we're going to have a good show tonight. A little message here before we start. Hi, Kathleen. How are you doing? Good to see you. The little thing that's happening is that my show, Into the Night, has been moved up to 9:10 p.m. So right after this show, if you can hang on for about 10 minutes, then my show, Into the Night, will come on. So yeah, and then Trish's show will come on after mine. But I'll get a little bit more into her show later on. But Michael, how are you doing?
Wow, Michael is fine. Thank you for asking, and I hope everybody out there has a blessed day and you are all feeling good, ready to be challenged beyond your beliefs. We have a really good guest tonight. Why don't you get into that, Sean, and talk about Daniel James a little bit? Yeah,
I sure will. Well, tonight's guest, I've heard so much good things about our guest tonight that he is an actor, he's a filmmaker, and he teaches metaphysics through his podcasts and films. Since his spiritual awakening in 2012, Daniel works to help expand consciousness through his films with what he calls as DNA triggers. And that is pretty interesting. Without further ado, our guest tonight, Daniel James. Good evening, Daniel.
Welcome. Hello. Welcome. We got the 3 Ps, Pittsburgh. And you know, Pittsburgh rocks. I mean,
that's right.
It depends, you know. Hey, and it's nice to actually have somebody that's in the business. I've been in it myself, the things that you do, but not exactly the same. I have some experience in that field. I normally worked for Universal Pictures while my contracts came through Moshe DeLon. Did a lot of the movies that everybody knows about in Pittsburgh. So it's phenomenal to see that we have people, inspiration out there. So thank you for coming on and joining us tonight. Go ahead, Sean.
No, I like the way you introduce our guests. It's pretty cool. I learn a lot from Michael. Michael has been a really big inspiration for me. But Daniel, so I have a couple friends that listen to your speech or your stories up at the Little Shop of Lilith up in Butler, PA, and they just have a lot of good things to talk about. I had Frater Crow on my show. I actually had Natasha too. She was on my show a while back. And I want to complete the trilogy tonight by having you on tonight.
Right on. That's really cool that we have a lot of the same friends.
Yes, it is cool. Tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Well, thank you for the introduction there. Like it mentions, I am an actor and a filmmaker. And I was those things first before I got into metaphysics and what I call the expansion of consciousness. So in 2012, I went through what a lot of people call a spiritual awakening, which I believe oftentimes when we have a spiritual awakening, it's triggered. There's a catalyst to that. It's usually triggered by some sort of traumatic event, or, you know, when people are going through a lot of challenges in their lives, then oftentimes there's sort of like a spiritual awakening that unlocks, because that is, I believe, the next stage in people's individual developments. Whether you're in religion or whether you're somebody just like immersed in what I call the 3D experience, the next stage is the spiritual awakening. And so for me, that happened in 2012, and had already been producing independent films and acting at that time. I became really passionate about studying the concept of extraterrestrials, aliens, life on other planets, because when you get into the journey of consciousness, and a lot of basic entry-level metaphysics, it all leads back to the concept of extraterrestrials, because I think that's one of the most mind-expanding concepts that we have available to us. It's highly suppressed, and we have a lot of, obviously, television and film and entertainment that depicts ETs, but it's always done in a fictional way. So when I started to research metaphysics and my journey into consciousness, it led me into discovering that extraterrestrials exist, and how that sort of directly impacts not only our planet, but our civilization and our human race. And at that point, you know, I formed sort of like a marriage between my entertainment journey as an actor and a filmmaker and my quest for knowledge and the expansion of consciousness sort of married together. And that's when I started to produce what I like to call conscious media, where the things that I am passionate about and that I understand about, another term I use, which is reality mechanics, in a sense, like how reality operates, how it's formed, how it works. I started to sort of marry that with my entertainment, which leads me here today. It's a full-time filmmaker.
What kind of that's pretty great. That's awesome, dude. I might need to borrow you, because I have to make a couple commercials for Chasing Prophecy and into
Let's
the
do it.
night. All right, cool, awesome. But so when you do your films, okay, when and act on your different shows, when you're an actor, do you seem to get more in contact with spirit, the outer realm?
Or do you
Even though-
influence it?
That's a good question. I think both, but I like to see each of us as individuals, like Sean, Michael, Daniel. My middle name is Michael, by the way. It's pretty cool. Daniel, Michael. I like to think that we as individuals, we're like a singularity point. Okay. And we create our own version of reality through the law of attraction and the law of repulsion. So to answer your question, pretty much anything that we do with the right intention and coming from a certain level of understanding of the way reality works, I direct it. It has the result that I want it to, and it also amplifies sort of my experiences, spiritual experiences, or even paranormal, esoteric experiences, all as a result of where I'm coming from as a singularity point. So it's like the result that can happen from me working on these projects or producing these things is sort of influenced by my intention behind it.
Michael, do you have a question?
Tons.
Go ahead.
All right.
Yeah, tons. I mean, but you know, of interest, things of interest. And I'll start gently, because I think that's. Well, I'm not harsh. I'm not harsh. I want to learn, and I believe everybody is a teacher.
Yes.
Yes.
And that's factual.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter if you're listening to somebody with a greater name than some of us here. We all teach each other, and that makes the whole fragment of everything we're going to talk about that much greater.
That's right.
Consciousness, elevation, positivity. If you influence things with negative energy, I believe that's the response you're circled in. I think if you focus more on positivity returns. It comes back to you that way. I think my life has worked that way. But what I wanted to get into and kind of asked you about, and you did answer one question, that you try to in place and instill values of your belief into your videos and your music, dialogue, things that you create.
Yes.
And that's wonderful, because we need good things out there especially for the next generations to focus on good things, because
Yes.
what you're practicing and what you're sharing are positive events and adventures that people can allow themselves. Like that first step of every day is the most positive one, as long as you take it.
That's right.
So that's my viewpoint of it. But there were a couple other things that you mentioned. The DNA triggers, I would like to talk to you a little bit on, for sure. I would also like to talk to you a little bit more. Is there some type of ambassadorship that you opened yourself up to that changed the whole dialect of your mind's perception of what you were dealing with when this all happened for you?
Oh, that's an awesome question.
Yeah, it
Yes.
is.
In terms of being an ambassador, I love that you even mentioned that word, because I like to consider myself an ambassador in terms of being somebody, in human form. I'm Daniel James. I am a human being having a human experience. But if you guys may have ever heard the concept of star seeds,
Yes.
a star seed is, in a sense, our extraterrestrial interdimensional origins. So what that means is, if Michael is here as Michael, well, you could have a star seed origin where you exist off planet amongst another extraterrestrial race or higher dimensional being that is still Michael from another perspective.
Mhm.
And that's your star seed origin. That's where, in a sense, you might come from while you're having your human experience as Michael. So I'm just somebody who, since I was 16 years old, I'm in my second half of my 30s now, but since I was 16 years old, I was getting downloads of memories from my lifetimes on other planets and other realities and other dimensions, little fragments and visions. And over the years, I was able to connect who these versions of myself were in other lifetimes and anchor them into Daniel James, into my incarnation now. And so what that means is, in a sense, I identify as Daniel James, but I also identify aspects of myself as my counterparts that live in other realities. So my starseed origins come from Sirius, the Sirius constellation, in what you could call as maybe the fifth density or fifth dimension, whatever people prefer. And so I like to think that the human race, we are isolated on our own planet only by a level and a degree of density and consciousness, and by the way that our belief structure is influenced from a very early age throughout, school and religion and all of our constructs that we have in the 3D. They sort of limit our perspective,
Right.
and they drive and dictate our belief structures into going towards certain things and away from others. But as you is as if you become exposed to, like what I mentioned, DNA triggers, which we can talk more about too as well. You start
Yes.
to get memories that unlock, and you'll start having memories of things that you didn't know you knew, and they weren't things that were forgotten. They were just hidden in your DNA and your energetic blueprint. And so when you mention being an ambassador, yes, I like to think of myself as an ambassador, and that I'm doing ambassador work, because when you live in a third density planet like Earth, we have what's called as the prime directive, which is a term that was originally made famous by the popular television series Star Trek. What a lot of people don't know is that all of our mainstream entertainment, which is movie, television, comic books, anything that's our entertainment, when you have fantasy elements like the Lord of the Rings type of universe or the Star Wars universe, that's actually all real. It's just packaged and delivered to us in a way that's depicting it like fantasy, like a work of fiction, so that we never actually consider it as being a tangible reality that exists outside of our very limited little snow globe of planet Earth. But outside, off planet, and inside of our Earth as well, there are almost pretty much a countless number of races, interterrestrial and extraterrestrial races of all different colors, shapes, and sizes, and varying degrees of consciousness, which you could label by densities, that we're all a part of. We're just separated from because of the limiting belief structures here on Earth on the surface level. So what that means is you need human beings that remember their starseed origins and understand how reality works from a greater perspective than the way that we're taught that it does in school and through religion, so that then we can then unlock memories of our past, present, future, and parallel lives that are happening right now that exist amongst
one
all of
plane?
these. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. That exist all right now in every direction that are all parts of ourselves. And then for the people who are unaware of these things, or maybe closed off and not interested in them, or don't have the belief structures to even consider that it's possible, you still need ambassadors that serve as like a middleman in between the 3D race and the 4D races and the 5D races and the 6D races that exist all over the cosmos, all over the universe, in different varying dimensions and densities, that people like myself we just have an awareness of the existence of those things. So in a sense, we're a middleman, we're a translator or a facilitator of those particular communications and interactions. So I apologize, Michael, if that was like getting a little bit off point, but in terms of being
No, not at all, dude.
No, I'm saying hi to somebody that's don't ignore me. But I have a question. I have a
please
question.
do. Yeah.
I'm full of them. So we're talking about a bunch of different planes and existences and whatnot.
That's right.
So we're referencing to entities of enormous magnitudes of this 1 through 11. Would you agree to that?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to have clarity to what we were making sure what the reference was in point.
So say, for example, if for our general understanding, we're third density beings, 3D,
right,
and we live in the fourth dimension. So in our plane of reality, to a degree, in our plane of reality, we have a certain type of plant, insect, avian, canine, human species that exist here in the 3D. And also some stuff that, a lot of people don't know about that are just sort of like hiding in the shadows. You're going to have alternative versions of those things and a whole new list of races and species that exist in each and every other density above us, all the way up to, say, for example, 12 dimensions or 12 densities. And I like to think of densities and like a hierarchical system that's more like a gradient than it is like solid levels. So like if you take a ruler that's 1 through 12 inches, each density on there is like its own total different version of reality, like tuning a radio.
So would you consider that like being on the fourth, instead of saying density, saying plane?
Yeah, they're interchangeable in a sense. Like a lot of people use dimension, which is really the space that you're in, and density is sort of like the energetic frequency within the space, within the dimension. But they're all just different levels of consciousness. They're not actually places that you can go to and travel to. They're levels of your energetic awareness of what all exists around us at all times.
Interesting. Now, back to when you were talking about starseeds, in your travels or doing your work, have you ever come across to where, people are not open up to what starseeds are? Do you think that is by choice, or do the starseeds kind of like, nah, we don't want him out here because he would raise a lot of havoc for us? Do you see where I'm coming with that question?
So you mean, does the individual, like the human, what was your question again?
Okay, the human doesn't want to really learn about starseeds, right?
Right.
But if it's another dimension, the starseed is saying, okay, we don't want them people here. We don't want this guy here because he's going to raise a lot of havoc for us.
Okay, so let's say, for example, any random person off the street, they're either going to be open and interested to the concept of a starseed, what it is, and being one, and what their particular starseed origins are, if it's relevant to their incarnation, if it's relevant to their life path, to their soul contracts, to the reason that they're a human being right now. For some people, it might not even be relevant for them to know about aliens or life on other planets or extraterrestrials or what their starseed origin is, because we all come here for very specific reasons, for the sake of the experience of being a human being on 3D Earth, for the sake of the expansion of our consciousness and the raising of our vibrational frequency. Some people don't need to go down this type of path that we're talking about tonight because it just doesn't really work into their life plan. But if it does, then information like this will eventually find them synchronistically. And when it hits them at any level, any point in their life, whether they're 15 years old or whether they're 70, there's sort of like a divine synchronistic meaning for when they go through this degree of a spiritual type of awakening. Because in a sense, if you all of a sudden someone tells you that not only do aliens exist, but you are one, they're only going to react like, wow, you're fucking crazy. I don't want anything to do with that. Or they're going to have this sort of like inner voice will come over them and they'll say, well, that's really interesting because I've always kind of felt like, you know, Earth isn't my home, or I almost kind of feel like I belong somewhere else and I long to go back, you know, and they're maybe attracted to certain constellations or certain star systems that they resonate with. They've always felt really positive about aliens when they see them in movies and TV shows, and they don't really see it as a work of fiction, but rather there's more there to investigate. Then those people are the ones who are kind of ready to make that connection to the stars and to their starseed origins, and I think everything in between too. I also think that there are some people who are kind of just like, it's impossible for them to even consider that what we're talking about is a reality, and they will never accept it.
Okay. Tony, my buddy Tony from Texas, he has a question. He says, so why are we here on this planet?
Yes. So each and every one of us have our own individual reason for incarnating onto Earth, but we're not prisoners here. This isn't a slave planet to a degree. I mean, in some ways it is, in some ways it isn't. But we all come here for the sake of experiencing what it's like to be in a very challenging version of reality. Okay, now we all know what it's like to live on Earth. We know the ups and the downs and the wins and the failures and the positives and the negatives. Well, what if I told you that the type of extreme polarity and contrast to the things that we can experience as humans, you can't get everywhere else? Let's say you're like a 10D higher dimensional entity that, for lack of a better term, isn't even physical like we are. And they're always happy and life is always perfect for them. You know, there's such a greater aspect of God or source or whatever your definition is of, you know, this whole cosmic ether that we exist in is. Let's say, for example, there is no growth where you are as this expanded all-knowing entity. So you have to come down to a more challenging 3D polarized version of reality, like a 3D Earth, where you can now go through all of these colorful experiences, both positive and negative, simply for the sake of the experience of them. That's why we come here.
All right, Michael, you're chomping at the bit. It's all yours, brother. You got
No, I'm not. I'm trying to take it all in and understand it. And if I can help by sharing to the audience in any way, any layman terms, more simplified manners,
Yes.
Sure.
that would be my focus
Yes.
right now. Because, you know, I'm sure people have interest in some of the theory here and reality of what the truth really is. So some people do say that, you know, as you said, this is not a prison planet, and I don't think it is either. I think it's not been a plan of a planet to be some type of issue against people. Man creates scenarios that do that, but Earth is a natural place. You know, this whole wonderful thing that we have here with all types of creation who can now create. And
Yes.
it doesn't matter if it's a fly or a tree. Everything has the ability of recreations. So life
Yes.
will always be here as a permanency in some fundamental way. But when you have cause versus outcomes, materials versus maybe non-materials, physical versus non-physical, these two differences in my mind are matters of equal outcomes, as long as people know how to diversify them. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I love that topic as well. I do believe that, in a sense, to a degree, we live in a cause and effect reality, or what we
Right.
call determinism or deterministic. And that type of physics really comes from the fact that we have linear time. And that's pretty much the only reason why we experience cause and effect the way that we do, because it can be measured in a linear way, like A to B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's a deterministic reality. But What if I
Oh,
told you that?
the
What if I told you guys that you're all deliberate creators and you're all very powerful beings having a limited human experience where the concept of linear time and deterministic you know, this equals that type of reality, it can actually be sort of redesigned and influenced or slightly restructured in your favor at all times.
I agree.
Yeah.
You have
No,
more
I
control
agree.
over
I
the
agree.
outcome or the effect of the cause than you think.
But would that still not in a way come back onto like how space time works, spiritual consciousness, uh, purpose and force? Like if I was to go and grab a football and kick it, it's my
Mhm.
plan as to how far it'll go, depending upon the pressure I apply. And that's what you're saying. The juncture is as within the control mechanism being acceptant to all this.
So we have what's called as mutual agreements before we come to Earth, before we have a 3D experience. There are certain things in regards to physics that we have a collective mutual agreement on, like generally speaking, gravity. We all agree on gravity. We all agree that the sky is blue. We all agree, how, in a sense, to a degree, how math works. And we all know that we need to eat, we need to drink water, we need to hydrate. There's like a lot of things, I wouldn't be able to list them all, that are general agreements, but we can still influence and mold and bend those types of physics, that type of cause and effect, that if I
Right.
kick the football, it will fly through the air and hit the ground. There are certain things through quantum meditation and the law of attraction and the law of repulsion, but manipulating the way energy and physics works, where you have more control over some of those universal laws, those mutual agreements, that we can still sway things in our favor.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. And I get where you're at on that. So, what I'd like to say to the audience, because I get exactly where you're coming from on all this, but if anyone was to make like the smallest change in their life, it could have the biggest effective outcome of positivity to create better balance in their lives
Yes.
and
Yes.
within their lifestyles. It's all up to acceptance and belief.
Right. Okay.
Yes. Belief is everything. It's the
Is there
total.
any? Yeah, right. But people want to believe right now. We're in that place of consciousness, and
Yes.
I want to give them any insight from you. The best way for them to apply themselves to that for that effort and to have success with it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I have to validate the concept of the law of attraction and repulsion, which are very basic entry level metaphysics.
Okay.
Entry level, basic. But the power of it, if you get into understanding how the law of attraction works on an energy level, where we're getting into quantum physics,
Right.
I'm telling you guys that it is, as I mentioned at the beginning of our program tonight, that we are a singularity point. That means your reality is created and reflected back to you through cause and effect and through linear time, but you are still
Okay.
the singularity point of everything that you experience, because we're all actually manifesting our own version of reality in real time, actually quantumly fast. And you guys can actually look this up. There's actually a speed to the rate that reality is created, and it's called Planck time. It's
What
the
is that?
speed Planck time.
Okay.
It's the speed that light travels the shortest distance possible.
Possible. Yeah.
That's right. So that's the speed of our reality. And we know that all of our physical reality itself is actually just probable quantum energy. Well, if we're the singularity point of that quantum probable energy, then that means that we're not only creating it and experiencing it, but we're totally dictating it. Now, we still have to think about working within the sort of collective universal agreements of what it means to come on Earth and abide by some of the physics and the laws that we have here, because that's just what we signed up for, to be in this version of reality. But when we want to apply the power of belief, we have to reprogram our limiting beliefs that we've all been taught at a very young age through things like
Bingo. Breaking that programming.
thank you.
Breaking it completely.
That's
You're
the
right.
start.
Yes.
And it's subconscious. See, limiting beliefs they run our reality because they hide in our subconscious thought. And so what that means is, let's say, for example, you decide that you want to quit a bad habit, or you want to maybe like manifest a new love partner or a new job opportunity. Well, all things are very possible. They're very possible to achieve in a short amount of time. But you would first have to deconstruct all of the limiting beliefs that you've been programmed with from a very young age of why you don't actually think that you might be worthy of those things, or
Yeah.
why time and money might be totally limiting factors in whether or not you can achieve any of your new goals that you have for yourself. You have to deprogram the limiting beliefs that are hidden in your subconscious first. And when they're actually almost like they're like little hiding creatures. And they're not your enemy. Their only job, similar to the way fear works, like fear is a tool if you learn how to look at it from a more positive perspective. Their only job is to make sure, it's to test you to see if you're really ready for the changes that you want to see in your life. And so when you get into, let me give you guys an example. I love your question about applying the power of belief. Well, we have to first deprogram our limiting beliefs. So let me give you guys a little exercise or an example of how somebody could do that. How could you practically do this tonight? Okay. Let's say, for example, you say, I need a new car. The car that I have isn't going to last very long, doesn't run good, it's going to break down. I need a new car, something that is reliable, that I can trust, that will get me from A to B. So then you would say, okay, I want to use the law of attraction and I want to manifest this new car. And that's where you start. But what we don't realize is we're programmed through cause and effect and linear time and negative limiting beliefs that there are all these subconscious limiting beliefs about how you can get the car, when you can get the car, whether or not you think you're worthy for the car. All of those factors, they actually get in the way of where you are now and you having the new car, period. That's all that you should be focusing on. I need a new car right now, and I know that I would like to have a safe, reliable car in the near future. Then you place that sort of order to the universe, to your higher self, to your higher mind, saying, I need this new car. So then you want to start to dig out the hidden limiting beliefs that are holding you back from manifesting or creating that thing with your deliberate creator abilities. Okay.
How hard is
you,
that?
It's not hard. It just takes, it takes a lot of discipline, because we're all trained at a very young age through Common Core school and religion that keep us always doubting what we're capable of as individuals and what we're worthy of and what we deserve. It's all, our whole reality is very limiting in that way. So then you could ask yourself, okay, well, I want a car within 6 months. Then you would ask yourself, why will it take me 6 months? Okay. When you ask yourself this series of questions, I'm going to tell you guys right now, these questions are designed to actually dig into your subconscious programming and find the limiting beliefs that are the only thing holding you back between where you are now and a quantum leap to the new car or the new love partner or the new job or the new thing you want to experience, whatever it is. So there's a series and a sequence of questions you can answer yourself. And what they're designed to do is they're designed to actually invalidate the limiting beliefs so that you realize that a lot of them are nonsensical. A lot of them don't even belong to you. They're just assumptions that you have based on limiting programming that we're all taught at a very young age. And once you realize that some of these beliefs that you're holding on to subconsciously, they're not real factors, then you let them go. Your mind says, I don't believe that anymore. That doesn't apply to me, and it's gone. And now all of a sudden, you've cleared up this creational energy that you have access to that can now help you create the thing better or closer to your vision or even faster in time. So some of these questions could be, for example, to get rid of limiting beliefs, right? I want this new car, the safe, reliable car in 6 weeks. No, let's say 6 months. Then you would say, why do I think it will take 6 months? Ask yourself that question. It has to be in the form of a question. And then you sit with it for a minute and you'll start to hear like your inner monologue. Your inner voice will start talking back to you, rationalizing why you believe, that's the key word, believe, that it will take you 6 months. You'll say, well, okay, I have a day job and I only make X amount of dollars that I put aside to support my cost of living. It's not enough to save up to buy a new car. Okay. So then you would also say, I also know that what my price range is, and I'm not going to be able to afford anything dependable within about 6 months worth of savings. So then what if I told you that you're only considering the new car by what you can afford based on your current income? And that's just one way of having the abundance that you need to get the new car. But there are so many other ways you can actually get a new car into your life. So you'd say, okay, well, in 6 months, I know that I can save that much, but my mom or my dad or a friend of mine, they did say that they could loan me a couple grand when I'm ready to get a new car. They could give me $3,000 or $4,000 towards the cost of like a good used car. So I know that with my savings that I have now and my income and a little bit of help from my parents, well, it's actually only going to take me about 3.5 months.
Okay.
But at first, you thought it was going to be 6 months because you just based it on your income or what you had in your savings right now. And you can apply the same protocol to literally anything. Like you want to take a trip to another country, or you want to go on a date with a new partner, or whatever it is you want to experience in your life. You go through these series and sequence of questions. And I'm actually trying to think of, there are more questions you can ask to dig out more of these subconscious limiting beliefs. But say, for example, okay, so now you're down to 3.5 months to get the new car. And then you could say, well, why will it take me 3.5 months? Because I'm getting this income now, and then my friends are going to give me $4,000, and I've got a couple thousand in savings. So what you've done is you've qualified whether or not you can get this car based on only one way, is having that money readily available within a certain time frame. So you can start going back into digging out more of these subconscious limiting beliefs, and you can actually find more reasons as to why you think that it won't take you that long, or why it will take you 3.5 months. And you could also say, because, well, I forgot that I could trade in my current car as well, and that'll give me another 3 grand. So I actually think I could probably get this thing in like, well, I don't know, maybe like 45 days. You just have to keep asking yourself this question. Why do I think it will take that long? Now, second question, okay? When you've asked why you think it will take that long, and you ask yourself again, is it going to take me 45 days? This is going to sound weird, but hear me out, guys. Trust me on this. You have to ask yourself these 2 questions as well, because you're going to come up with all kinds of weird stuff you didn't even know was hiding there. Number 1, what am I afraid will happen if I actually get this car? Now that seems like crazy. Why am I afraid something will happen? You don't know. But our fears are so deeply woven inside of our subconscious that they hide, and they actually use these limiting beliefs to protect themselves from ever being discovered and released. Because when we release the belief, or we release the fears that we have, they're gone. And now we're that much more powerful, and we can get what we want that much faster. But these fears and these beliefs are their only job is to test us constantly from whether or not we're ready for change. That's what I'm trying to get at. What am I afraid will happen if I actually get this car? You want to ask yourself that in any circumstance in your life, whether you're having a medical issue. You guys would be surprised. I'm somebody who deals with a lot of medical challenges. And when I have sort of like a mystery illness, or I'm not feeling well, I ask myself, what am I afraid will happen if I heal from this? And then there's answers that come. And the answers, I'm almost frustrated in myself that I believe them to begin with. Like, what am I afraid will happen if I heal? Well, it means that I'll have to go back to work, or maybe the support that I'm getting from these certain friends and stuff, they won't be there anymore because I rely on them as a crutch, because of my medical challenges. They're only here in my life because of my medical needs. So maybe I'll lose them as a friend. You don't know all these things that are ridiculous and nonsensical, but they're actually there to limit your progress. And then what am I afraid? How long will it take me to achieve this goal? What am I afraid will happen if I do? And then another way you can kind of reword that is, hey, it's slipping me now. What am I afraid will happen if it does? That's actually the most important one that can actually nullify a lot of your other subconscious limiting beliefs. Is what am I afraid will happen? Or you can reword it like this. This is the third one. What am I believing to be true about this thing? Whether or not you can get the new car, you can have the new romantic partner, or you can go on this cool trip, or you can heal from medical challenges, or even come into a windfall of money. What am I believing to be true about this, about the fact that I can't have that?
Yeah.
So a lot of times the way that you word those, they're designed to dig out the subconscious beliefs. And once you get an answer from yourself, because your spirit guides or your higher self, the universe will answer you. You'll hear a little voice, an inner monologue, and it will have an answer. And the answers will surprise you guys because you didn't know that they were there. That's their job. They're hiding in your subconscious to keep you limited.
Okay.
So that's my speech.
Okay, that's cool. Sean, go ahead first.
Yes, Tony has a question for you. And then you got Stacy here says, amazing suggestions. I have my daughter listening. This is some wonderful advice for her. Thank you, Daniel.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here.
Tony says, has Daniel created the world he is in now after he was 16 years old?
Yes.
I'll put it up. There you go.
Has Daniel created the world he is in now after he was 16 years old? Yes. Yes.
And every day is creation.
Every moment is creation.
There you go.
But I've created two worlds. I've created my own version of the reality that we're all in now, my own perspective of it.
Okay.
And it's been a much better version of reality than I was in 2012 before I went through my spiritual awakening, which was a total fucking nightmare, and I just didn't want to live anymore. So imagine being happy now and grateful for your life when you come from that rock bottom point that you were so frustrated with your circumstances that you just couldn't see any way out. Right. So I have created a better version of my reality now as Daniel James from that point, using these principles that we're talking about right now, where I use what do I believe about myself to be true? What am I afraid will happen? What am I afraid will happen if I get this thing that I really want? And why do I believe it will take that long? Using those three principles, those three questions, I'm constantly digging out limiting beliefs. And when they're gone, that thing that I want to change about my life is now so much closer. Or sometimes can happen in a quantum leap where you don't even need the linear time anymore. And before, when you needed the car, you thought it was going to take you 6 months. Well, it only ended up taking, 20 days because you dug out all these beliefs and released them. And they were the only thing holding you back from the thing that you wanted to achieve. And the second world that I've created is, I know this is weird, but it does kind of tie into when we talked about DNA triggers, which we got to touch at some point tonight. Because I would love to teach you guys how they work. And then you'll realize that they've been happening to you probably your whole life and didn't know it. I've created a portal to the reality that I actually come from, or the version of reality that I actually come from my starseed origin. And I'm able to do that through my films, through entertainment, the same way that all of our Hollywood cinema does, that create these fantasy worlds that we think are fiction and fun. And, but we will never experience anything like that ourselves because we're just simple little humans. Those things don't really exist out there, right? But they do. And you can actually create them with your imagination.
Interesting. I want to weigh back a little bit, and I don't want to do this in a negative manner. I want to give you respect.
Oh, anything you want. Yeah.
I respect where you're coming from. But typically, It sounds very easy if we concentrate to do it and take this path forward.
Yes.
However, there's people out there that may be down on their luck that need all these things.
Right.
They don't have parents to go to. They just moved to a city.
Sure.
Things in the last couple of years have hit. They need a car. They need a place to live. They're not having enough income. And some people are going to have doubts to this. And again, I'm not trying to be the Debbie
No, thank you for
Downer.
asking.
I think what's important here is some of the faculties are, if one was even to receive this car, then these people who have lived this way, and if maybe it's a used new car that they are only able to get, they're going to worry about the next fear factor, putting gas in it, maintaining it. What's it going to need in the future? Just like you needing a doctor, a car may need a car doctor.
That's right.
And you have all these other circumstances that surround them. How can, with positivity, can people reflect to keep strong in that effort forth? Because there could be people out there who want to believe everything that's being said right now. And I know I focus around this positivity. Like when somebody sees a commercial and they see a very young, vibrant man or young lady walking down the street in a power suit that just is confident, says it's all over them, because they live in a realm where they're not going to quit. They are on a mission to receive, to get what the universal the universal magnitude of receiving is all about. And they go for that. They get the better job. They get the better car. And sometimes it's all in the perception of how one is and how they put themselves across. But there, again, is another fragment of people that live in a different type of, within a different type of demeanor, I guess I want to say, that need all these things. And if they can't clear the slate and remove that fear, is there an exercise besides what you're saying that'll help them a little better?
That was such an awesome question. And I love that you're making space for the people in that position that are feeling so frustrated and limited by their circumstances that they can't possibly see a way out of it.
Right.
Using these types of like complicated metaphysical principles. Let me give you another one that can take anybody listening right now, or someone who might even be homeless, or somebody who is having worse medical challenges than I am, and they're in dire straits. Okay. Let me give you this guys' exercise. This is something we can all do together tonight when we get off the phone, or you're listening now. Check this out, okay? This protocol is how I have used this same action, this same exercise to improve my life in a lot of ways. In ways that if I didn't discover this exercise, I could not see my way out of the dark, okay? Anybody entry level can start right here. Two things. Number one, and you guys definitely want to listen to this back and just do it tonight. Start tonight. Anybody at any level can start right here, and you can go from absolute dire straits to where you want to be in your imagination. Okay. The biggest thing we have to eliminate from the whole process is the how. And you said the word how multiple times in your question. So that's what we're going to isolate, and we're going to get rid of it. we're going to isolate the how, and we're going to throw it out. But we're going to do that by teaching ourselves how to be powerful enough not to need it. Okay? Because once the how is gone, you got to look at it like this. The definition of abundance is having the ability to do what you need to do when you need to do it. Now, we're always abundant at all times in something, whether you're abundance in negativity and your abundance in disadvantages, or your abundance in positivity, or you're abundant in all of these great opportunities and circumstances. And like I told you guys beginning, we're the singularity point that's creating that whole archetype and how it affects us. So let's say we're creator beings and we want to be able to change our reality to the way that we would prefer it to be in our imagination. But we don't know how we're going to get these things. The how is what limits the process. And here is the exercise that we can use right now. And I use it every week to do things that I never thought I could, because the how is gone, right? You want to take one thing in your imagination that you believe on a scale of 1 to 10 that you can achieve within 1 week. Okay? So let me break that down. You want to take the experience of something, like meeting a certain person or having a certain conversation. Maybe that's seeing a certain type of animal or a certain physical thing like a balloon or a flag or something specific, but you want to pick an item, an object that you want to receive, like a physical thing, the tangible thing that you can hold, or an experience. Those work too. Like I want to get a phone call from an old friend, something to that effect, an experience or a physical thing. And you want to rank it on a scale of believability from 1 to 10, 10 being I have the greatest amount of belief that I can experience this one thing within 7 days, 1 being the least amount. Okay. And the reason why this protocol is so important is because it helps build your creator abilities. It helps build your own internal confidence to being able to achieve much bigger things later. So we want to start small. So what I mean by that is make sure you choose something very specific that it's within an 8 or a 10 level of believability that you can experience this one thing within 7 days. So when I first started doing this, it was 2013. Right after my spiritual awakening in 2012. And what I started was I would like a free dinner. I want a free meal. But I didn't define how I was going to get it. That wasn't like I'm going to win a free meal ticket for a restaurant, or it wasn't like I was going to find a gift card on the ground. It didn't. You don't think about the how. You want to throw that out. Because there are so many ways that you can find the abundance to get a free dinner, and so many unfathomable, colorful ways that you don't want to limit how it can get to you within 1 week by trying to imagine the most realistic way that it can happen to you. So you don't think about the how. What you do is you say, okay, I know that within 7 days I can get a free dinner. And I believe that on like an 8 or a 9 out of 10. Within 7 days, something will happen in my life. The universe will move it around for me and I'll get a free meal. So then what you want to do is you just want to take 5 minutes. That's all it takes. 5 minutes. And you want to close your eyes and you want to imagine in your imagination, whatever comes to you is totally valid. It's totally fine, of how it could happen. But more or less, just focus on the fact that you're eating a free dinner. Focus on how excited and how good you're going to feel when you've got like this huge pizza or a steak or a vegan meal or whatever you like to eat. And it came to you synchronistically in a way that you could have never imagined, but you're just imagining for 5 minutes, you're eating a delicious meal. And that's all you got to think about. Because what's happening on a quantum level is energy is moving itself around for you. Because like I mentioned, that you are the singularity point of your own version of reality, then that means with enough intention and enough will and enough imagination, you're supercharging physics, you're supercharging all of the atoms and the quantum subatomic particles around us that form matter, and circumstances are also a form of matter. They're bending to your will. And all the universe hears is what your intention is. It hears what your energy is, what your vibrational frequency is. So if you take 5 minutes and you pick one thing, then on a scale from 1 to 10, 8 to a 9 to a 10% out of that, you believe can happen within 7 days, you imagine yourself enjoying the thing for 5 minutes. And that is actually going to move physics for you. I've been doing this since 2013 on a regular basis, and the things that I've been able to achieve for myself, I would have never imagined I could have done. And the key variable in that is you don't want to actually insist on how it's supposed to happen, because the how is the one thing that might limit it from ever manifesting or being something tangible that you do experience. Instead, you just want to create a version of reality where you, Sean, are enjoying the thing that you want to experience within 7 days that you believe can happen within that 8, 9, or 10 scale of believability. Now, the philosophy behind choosing something that you believe within an 8 to 10, experiencing within 7 days, is because if you start small, you're starting with nothing. You're homeless at this point. You literally have nothing that you are excited about in your life, and all you can imagine is being in a better situation, but you don't know how to do that. So don't start there. Don't expect to have all the cosmic answers to solve your life in an immediate moment like that. Instead, start small with tangible things that you believe can happen to you within 7 days. And what that does is it starts to train your creator abilities like a muscle. And it starts to actually dig out those limiting programming subconscious beliefs, and you start to throw them away, because you realize that the how of you get the new car, the how you go on a trip, the how you find this new romantic partner, or you improve your health, was the only reason why it wasn't changing. Because you have all of these specific beliefs as to how you're supposed to change your life. But then when you try to qualify how to do those things, you say, I don't have the resources. I don't have the time in the day. I don't have the energy. I don't even know where to start. So if you get rid of the how, then you'll realize that you don't need a how. It can get to you in more ways than you can imagine if you let it, and you don't insist on how holding you back from it. And you do that by starting the exercise. I want to get a free thing of this type within 7 days. For me, I used to choose a meal. And the way that it would work for me, I did it every week. I had imagined myself eating my favorite thing. And I just closed my eyes. You don't have to go on like a trance. You don't have to put music on and stuff. Just sit wherever you are and close your eyes, take a deep breath, and imagine yourself doing the thing that you want to do. And you choose something within an 8 to a 10 believability, and the universe moves itself around to bring you that thing. And oftentimes it never took me a week. It took me 2 or 3 days. And then somebody would call me up and say, hey, Daniel, man, I'm in town for the first time in like a month. Do you want to go out to eat? It's on me. And I'm like, oh yeah, man, where are we going? And it's like, oh, that pizza place we used to go to. The place that you love. You always get the same thing every time. White sauce with mushrooms and spinach. Let's go. And I did it for weeks and weeks and weeks in a row. And a different circumstance would pop up out of nowhere where a different person would provide me the resources I needed for a free dinner or free meal. Sometimes it was a gift card. Other times it was a family member calling me to take me out. Whatever the circumstance was, there was a free dinner, and I could do it over and over and over. And the more times you see this protocol working, then here's what changes: the bigger stuff. So when you start small, like I used to drink energy drinks. I quit drinking them years ago because they make me sick. But I used to say, okay, I want a free energy drink. I'd manifest a free energy drink where somebody that I happened to be hanging out with would just give me one, or they would have them and it'd give me like a whole 6-pack. But these are small, trivial things. They're not very important, but that's why you choose them at the beginning of this exercise, because you want to choose things you believe can happen without a lot of doubt, because they're so trivial that it's like, who cares if they don't?
Yeah.
Who cares?
No, I hear you. And maybe even more simplified things, of practicing, of doing things.
Yes.
For people to have more respect for how this system works, because
yes,
it doesn't have to be an entanglement. It can be a purity of energy, because we give off so much energy. Every cell in our body's full of electricity.
Absolutely.
And if anybody understood the voltage that we have, that we store, it's mind-blowing.
Your mouth would just...
It really would. I mean, what is it like when you count the cells in the body and then you multiply that? It's like you could be a power grid. And
yes.
And so here you have that type of theory. But say it's what's the card game when we were kids that we play by ourselves? Solitaire?
Yeah.
Say most people never win it. Practice that for 7 days. Say, I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. I want to win. And on the 7th or 8th or 9th, boom, it could happen. Mm-hmm. And then that's your trigger point. Wow, I finally did it. And then sometimes so simple, things like that even interact the same way as that free dinner.
Anything. Right. Whether it's meeting a new person.
I'm definitely going to try that.
Yes.
I am going to be thinking.
Start small.
I will.
And
I'm
when
gonna do that
you
tonight.
guys start seeing these things happen in your life, that's when you level up and you can choose bigger things that before you would have never believed I can get a car in 6
I will
months.
give you a call, Daniel, when that,
Right.
you know. But I have to take a little break here
Sure.
because I want to thank our sponsor for the second hour
Yes,
of
yes.
Chasing Prophecy, which is Carnation. Thank you, Carnation, for sponsoring the second half of the show.
And I got some in my cup. I just
Oh,
want to
do
let
you?
Carnation know that I truly have some in my cup.
And something else about Carnation, and I've said this on the show many a times, that Carnation has come out with a brownie mix.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Is that what
yes.
make a brownie in a cup thing?
I know this is like a box, dude. It's like a box.
Oh, tell them to send. Oh, well, no, I mean, you know what I mean. I'll have
Yeah.
to check it out. I don't know. I'm not aware of that, but this don't taste too bad.
No, Carnation's good, man. We got Jenny used to bake with it, during the holiday season.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes. So,
Oh, okay. Well,
but
Jenny,
again,
keep that Carnation coming.
yes, yes, keep it coming. That's good. So, we're gonna go a little
I'm gonna
bit off a
excuse
little bit.
myself for 1 second.
All right, a little bit off a little bit. Daniel, have you done paranormal investigations?
Good question. So I am less about the paranormal in terms of like ghosts and spirits and passed on humans, and I'm more into cryptozoology.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Sasquatch, the local monster in the woods. Like I'm big into cryptozoology and the investigation of unscientifically discovered creatures.
You are right up our alley here tonight.
Yeah,
Love it.
tell us what is real or not real?
Yes, absolutely real, 100%. And it's only limited and suppressed by our leadership because once again we get back to the concept of aliens. If we knew that things like Sasquatch and werewolves and vampires and all of the things that we hear and see about on TV shows and movies were real, it actually does something to our consciousness. It actually, once again, we talk about limiting beliefs.
Yes.
It starts to deprogram certain aspects of religion. And it also starts to deprogram certain limiting beliefs that we have about being alone in the universe.
Right.
And if all of humanity suddenly agreed that the creatures that we only see in movies really existed and they're right here on Earth with us, it would start to challenge a lot of some of our societal structures that they use to control us.
Right.
So
I agree.
Yes, I totally agree too. Now, here's a question that I ask everybody who's into Bigfoot now. Do you think that they come from another dimension from one dimension to here on Earth and go back through that dimension again? And the reason why I say that is because whenever there is a Sasquatch sighting, there's a ton of UFOs a lot of activity with UFOs. What's your opinion on that?
Great question. The answer is yes. The Sasquatch they do live here on Earth with us, but they're fourth and fifth density. So we're third density. And let me explain to you guys really quick the way this tier system works. I didn't make it. I wish it wasn't like this. But the way that densities work is that if we're third density, you can perceive all 2 and 1 dimensional density entities that exist in their framework. But for some reason, if you're third density, you can't perceive the beings that exist in fourth and fifth. But if you're a fourth and a fifth density being, you can perceive all of the densities beneath you. So what that means is I believe that the Sasquatch and some other creatures that we call cryptids, they're very real and they're all around us, but they're just on a different radio station, the fourth or the fifth density frequency. And they can see us and they know that we're here and they know that our reality is what it is from our understanding. We just can't see them unless we can raise our vibrational frequency and tune our consciousness to a higher rate where their baseline exists all the time. And they can also, if they choose, lower their vibrational frequency, or they can lower their density to meet us in the middle. And that's why we have sightings in certain times and places. Synchronistically, you have an interaction, you see a UFO, or you run into the dog man, or you find a whole pack of trolls in the woods. It's because they're kind of slipping from their version of reality, their dimension, to ours, and we're in a vibrational state where we're actually closer to theirs too. So we're meeting somewhere in the middle. It's almost like their version of reality bleeds into ours from time to time.
But it's
Jenny,
parallel. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Sean. Go ahead.
Yes, it's parallel. Yes, it's parallel.
okay, Jenny says, she said it's a hybrid of a human being made by man. That's what she thinks Sasquatch is. And something else about the fifth element. Thank you, Brian. It's my cousin.
Cool. Right on. I think that human beings, this is going to piss some people off, but we didn't spawn from Earth. And I think that we are ourselves, the human being, the human vessel, is an archetype of an avatar that you can, in a sense, call a spacesuit. And the human archetype exists on probably about 1 million different planets, just like we do. And the Sasquatch, they are a distant version of the human avatar archetype that has slightly different DNA and genetics that make them what they are. But we probably exist distantly in a similar type of archetypal framework in terms of like what a physical body is. Distantly, yes.
Cool. I have something I wanted to throw in there just because I get a large following as in the Bigfoot community. I do a lot of shows. I have good content, the best I can find. I try to do my best because due diligence is everything. But I think just a theory of thought for me of where we are with things. I would say, as I use the term below level 7, there are things being done and created. There are man playing with. There's too much information out there that would not be exactly true.
I agree.
We know the air on the mouse. We know the recreation of the sheep and the things like that, and how many other things that I won't get into right now. But when you're in a normal state of mind, not thinking, that's when the best connection occurs. When
I
you
agree.
least expect it to happen, that's when the synchronicity occurs.
I agree. Completely.
Otherwise, if you're catching things through camera lenses and pictures, that's the parallel of universe adjacent to ours, where you're actually manipulating that fragment. And that's why the pictures are so manipulated and we cannot get clarity to them. And when we do, there is a couple films out there, a couple film clips, maybe 3 or 4 that actually have some foundation of good, positive something. The Patty film was one of the best, and we have to maybe look at that and say, well, they can't get over here. They can fully manifest, and
Yes.
by accident, we can experience them, but they can wander off and go back to where, and some mannerism that we don't totally understand, that particular energy source of how they can do it, but they can manipulate it. And I think a lot of the signs that we have that come from things like this as well is when we look at trees, wood spirits. When I say wood spirits, I mean when we see these focuses of pictures that replicate an animal or a shape, that nature is saying, we are one of all and we are here, but we have to learn how to create that synchronicity to connect it. I think the government, of course, has found things, has had many projects that deep dive into how they can do it, and they withhold a lot of information.
Absolutely.
So I would agree with you on where we're at. And I think it comes with negative impact to the community, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to be focused around this whole thing, that we're never going to truly be able to grasp our hands on what we want to have until we can figure out how these densities of higher consciousness make it more available to us.
Yes. And what if I told you that just hearing this conversation, it gets you closer to that point?
Right.
Yeah.
Because information is frequency.
Yes.
It's data. And
ethers.
all the time. All the time. You're right there.
We're walking through information. And sometimes that's what gives you the chills. It may not be a paranormal experience. It's the fact that your body's picking up, in my mind, thought patterns work like a cell phone. And
Yes, absolutely.
that's how they figured out the technology.
100%.
It started figuring out how the mind worked. But a lot of people don't look into the complexity and depth of what that is about. I do. I try to. I'm strange.
You're
Well, no,
not
what you just
strange.
said, I
You're not
absolutely
strange
agree
at
with.
all, dude. Not at all. Jenny says the government made them.
Well, I mean, I respect Jenny, and there's many things we don't know. I would say the government's behind things. I would not say exactly that. I mean, I look. I have papers that say they have tried things, and we know that whistleblowers have came forth, but we don't have any fundamental proof. When we do seem to be able to get facts with new cameras and technology, they disappear.
Mhm.
So I think what we need to look at here is the focus is it paranormal or is it something else? And I'm saying it's something else because it's a reality, and it's so many things live amongst us, but not with us.
Right.
Right.
That's right.
Now
Yes.
we're in. Now, have you heard about Chestnut Ridge or Chestnut Hill here up there in Westmoreland County? There is like a lot of sightings of Sasquatch, Wolfman, all kinds. Have you ever been up in that area?
I'm so glad you asked me that question. So my partner, Frater, you guys know Frater.
Yeah, I do.
He's a longtime friend of mine, 8 years. And my girlfriend Lauren and another friend of mine, Caroline, she's from the West Coast. We actually did a small documentary that is called the Bermuda Triangle of Pennsylvania.
Oh,
And it's about the Chestnut Ridge itself. And we did a whole 20-minute documentary about that paranormal area. So we know all about it.
oh, wow. How can we get that documentary? I'd like
There
to
he
see
is.
that.
Speak
What's
of the
that?
devil.
There he is.
I just
Yeah.
said
There he is,
speak of the
speaking of
devil.
the devil. You know what? I actually heard of something about that, but I don't know why. I guess you have a pretty good following because I have this mental thing right now going on in my head that I know about this particular thing that you did, but I had no clue. I'm sitting in front of the person that came up with that.
Yeah,
That is so strange.
that was me.
Nah,
So,
everything happens for a reason, dude. There is no
nice little
coincidence.
synchronicity there. Listen, it's free to watch on YouTube, you guys. It's online right now. If you go to YouTube and search the Bermuda Triangle of Pennsylvania, it's a really, I want to use the word sweet, lighthearted documentary. And the reason why we chose this sort of tone was because when you guys see a paranormal film or a documentary, they're oftentimes like horror based, and
Aggressive.
they're aggressive, and sometimes if you don't execute it right, it comes off as like a little bit cheesy or corny. And we didn't want to reach too far and try to do the same thing that everybody else was doing, but also not really execute it very efficiently. So we made this lighthearted documentary because we're all four of us are just very passionate about the concept of cryptozoology, extraterrestrials, what exists outside of our immediate veil of awareness. And we made this documentary for free to watch, and I absolutely love it. I think it's very sweet. It's like a feel good film, but it's about these creatures and the Chestnut Ridge. It's like a little look into that area. So I've been there probably 8 times.
Have you seen anything?
No. And I think that's pretty crazy. We did a whole documentary about the place and we didn't see anything or have an experience or an encounter. But one thing I like to teach people, which I know for a fact Frater will vouch for this until he's blue in the face, is sometimes when you're with the wrong people,
Yes,
or you're
I
with
agree.
somebody who isn't open, or they don't subconsciously believe these things exist, or they don't actually believe they could have their own experience, then they'll actually prevent an encounter.
Yes, I agree. That's the same way in paranormal hunting ghosts and stuff like that.
That's right.
Excuse me. Hunting ghosts is a bad term. Whenever you go look for ghosts, we'll go.
I'll tell
that
you guys
way.
this too, real quick. I I never went out specifically investigating the paranormal and looking for ghosts, because when I was younger, I was big into like the TV show, like Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters. I loved all that stuff and I wanted to do it. And I got really into like, okay, I think I want to be a paranormal investigator. This is years ago, by the way. And then when I used to live in Buffalo, New York, years ago, I met one of the cast members from one of the TV shows. And we actually like fell in love and started dating. So I was dating this girl from one of the TV shows for 2 years, and being in a relationship with her, I kept having to go to all the conventions where like all the celebrities would go, all the movie stars would go, and like the paranormal conventions where you can go do meet and greets and stuff.
Right.
And as I sort of got deeper into the entertainment, the mainstream side of paranormal investigating, it really turned me off on like the whole thing. It just sort of put a bad taste in my mouth when I got to meet like the movie stars that are in the industry, like the big guys on TV. I got to meet all them through my ex-girlfriend, and they were telling me all kinds of stuff like, yeah, you know, it's like we hardly ever really catch anything. And if we do, you want to hear what this one guy, I can't say his name, but it says, you know what? If we do actually catch stuff, we're not allowed to air it.
I know who said that. I know who said that, dude. I know who you're talking about.
We
I won't
can't talk
mention his
about
name.
him, can we?
No, we can't. No.
Yeah, there's something about we there's certain things we can't. Yeah, that's
They can't even show on TV because like our leadership are the controllers, I like to say, or the government, if whatever, they don't want people knowing that these things are really out there or that we have access to them. Because like I said, it breaks reality. It breaks the continuity of our mass consensus, starts to ruin the structure.
I got to throw something out here. First, I want to say to Jeannie, I debate's great. Call me. Let's talk. Bigfoot. I don't disagree with her either. I just wanted to get that out that I forgot to before. But when we go into the reflection of where, let's just say where we are, I'm going to watch my wording as carefully as I can because I don't want to create controversial.
Sure.
But we have two separations of power here that are fighting. One that's bringing back biblical content and scenarios, and another side who is looking at more of light and purity. And then there's us in the middle here too, talking about all these differences of, while one is promoting to bring it out and open, we dislike. The other side is fighting for them not to bring it out and put it to light. But at the same time, they're fighting on how it should be delivered. Would you agree to that? Because of what the overall picture of what we've seen with the award shows versus this is happening in the world versus this is going on. And now we're seeing things that got pulled down, you know, and now they're being replaced with things that have content of some of the topics in ways that we could probably go into, like Dogman. If you look into Dogman, why don't you go back to the Egyptians and beyond and see who created some of these things? And
that's right.
They're, in a way, I think we're under a drip of disclosure. And we could possibly be looking at something altogether different than what people think we're looking at. And I'm not trying to make an enemy. I
agree with you.
I want everybody to have their life. I'm not being judgmental to nobody. But do you get my drift? That I put enough clarity as to what I'm seeing? Democracy says one way, bring it out, let everybody show through. The other way says no, it's not part of the norm. You know, and I'm not saying that I don't disagree with some things, but I think the violence between the parties is disrupting the drip.
Right. And I would say that if we could try to let go of our mainstream media and our leadership of ever telling us the truth.
Right.
We can't expect them to give it to us. And if they do, like you guys notice this whole movement, I would say like the past 3 months of like the actual news is talking about alien invasions. Yes. And they're putting UFO sightings on TV. And you have to ask yourself why. So is there a drip of disclosure? Yes. But I also kind of fear that it's being controlled and angled a certain way that's still fear-based.
Yeah.
To make people not even want it if it's there.
Here's the way I look at on the fear base. This is the 21st century. Everybody talks about UFOs. Everyone talks about aliens. I mean, to me, so what? Show more aliens, show more UFOs, show more cryptids, and we're not going to go and say it's the end of the world. You
Right.
know what I mean? And here's my theory: if a freaking UFO alien came down and said, "I'm taking you," I'm like, please.
I know.
And the reason, and the reason being is A, to get off Earth for a while, but B, there is nothing that I can do about it.
Right.
Do you see what I mean? There's nothing
Yep.
I can do about it.
Hey, can I ask you a question, please? Have you ever interviewed anybody that has had sightings or an abduction? Have you dealt with any criteria in your work that way yet?
I've been abducted and I've had multiple of my own sightings. And as far as my journeys have led me in this community, like the disclosure community or the para community or any of those variables, the types of experiences that I've had are generally more bizarre and fascinating than the people that I try to get stories from. So if you guys want to talk about some of the weird stuff that's happened to me, I could do that. But generally
Yeah,
speaking,
please do,
people
man.
are
We got
asking me.
another half hour. We got another half hour. You're up for it. Go ahead.
Well, Sasquatch exists. Let's just start right there. Aliens exist. I know those are bold statements, but they're just total facts. You're looking at an experiencer, an enjoyer of it. My first Sasquatch experience was with my ex-wife, Amy. Her and I were on the way home from a rock concert in Big Flats, New York. Okay? I know this is very cliche. It's probably like the most boring setting that you guys can imagine. But our car broke down in the hills of Big Flats, which is nothing but mountains for like 2 hours. 2 hours straight in Western New York. My alternator went out in like a 2000 Geo Prism. And so our car breaks down and we realize that we had just passed a rest stop behind us. Now, if you guys are driving down the thruway, you know how there's a median in the center that's just like a gravel area that you can turn around if you need to? The halfway point, we got out of our car that had broken down and it was pitch black because we're out there in the middle of nowhere and we couldn't see anything, but we knew that there was a rest stop just back the way there that we could see from our car in the distance. Other than that, it's pitch black. Well, when we got out of the car and we walked to the gravel, you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you. And all of a sudden, we hear this huge scuffle right in the rocks in front of us. Huge like slamming sound on the ground right in front of us. And we both stopped dead in our tracks. And I look up, and in the moonlight, in the silhouette of the moon that was up in the sky, I could see like this 7.5 foot shape standing in front of us. And it's breathing like this deep, heavy, like breath, like you would hear from like a large animal. It's like this heavy breath. And her and I are just like stone frozen, just can't even move in terror because it's like in your mind.
Stoned. He said stoned.
A little bit.
I'm making a joke. I'm sorry. It's really cold to hear.
And it's in that moment that her and I don't know what to do because there's something in front of us and we can't see it because it's too dark. But we're like, you start to go through that cognitive dissonance where your brain starts to like try to rationalize what you think it is. But you, at the same time, you don't want to say that or believe it because you just, how could it happen to you?
Believe the lie versus the truth, even though it's in front of you. Yeah, I get it.
And so her and I, we decided, let's just go back to the car. I said, do you want to go back to the car? And she goes, yeah. And just in that moment, when her and I decided to turn around, whatever this thing is, it bolts past us. And I can hear two definitive footsteps that seem like they weigh like a ton. You could hear the weight, this doom, doom, boom, just scuffle past us through the rocks, across the street and into the woods, right where my car's parked, where my car's broken down on the side of the road. Mm-hmm. And her and I were just horrified because, like, in that moment, it's like you think you know what it is, but it's too far fetched. Like, this is even before my spiritual awakening, so I wasn't really open to things like this. And so we run back to the car, and I said, "Wait, we're not going to get anywhere if we just sit in this car that's broken down because the battery's dead." I says, we have to get to that rest stop. We got to get back there and then we'll call for help because our car's broken down. So she agrees. So we start to walk down towards the rest stop, and now we can hear it trailing with us through the woods, just into the tree line. We're on the shoulder of the road, and we can hear it crunching through the sticks alongside of us. And I says, Amy, I was like, it's still there. And she's like, I know. Don't talk about it. Just keep going. We're getting pretty close to the rest stop. And suddenly it lets out that shriek, that howl, that stereotypical. You've seen it on all like the Travel Channel. You've seen it on like the History Channel and all the monster hunting shows. That definitive cannot be anything other than what you think it is, howl. And it's got to be like 100 feet from us. And the sound was so loud. And when that cognitive dissonance hits you, it's like it cut right through my bones. It cut through my whole body. You just stop. Her and I just stopped, and we're grabbing each other's hands. And you know in the moment that it's a Bigfoot. It's like a Sasquatch. It's a creature. You know, this was 2009, so I was not open to these things yet. And her and I we just book it. We just run to the rest stop, and we get there. And we can hear like these dogs barking in the distance. Like maybe somebody had a farmhouse in the woods out there that had a couple dogs, and they were just like going off because they heard the howl too. And when we got to the rest stop, we just sat there and looked at each other, and we're like, you know what that was, right? You know what we experienced. She's like, I have to accept it. Yes. Like we could see its shape. We could see it in the moonlight in the gravel turnaround. It was like 7.5 feet tall. So that was my first encounter, but not even the most fascinating one. So flash forward to 2019. My partner at the time, now Lauren, her and I are videographers. We're full-time filmmakers. And we were hired to go film a spiritual retreat in Mount Shasta, California, on the other side of the country.
Oh, I know where.
Okay.
Know all about it.
They give us an Airbnb in this big, beautiful house that's tucked away outside, away from the residential in the woods. And there, we have one house that's got like 7 people living in it. And then a couple blocks away, like a 5-minute drive away, there was another house with like another 8 people living in that one. And so it was a big spiritual retreat that we were working on for 2 weeks. So Lauren and I were the full-time filmmakers filming everything. Well, I would say like 3 nights into the trip, I was responsible of driving people back and forth in this van that we rented to go to and from the 2 different Airbnbs. And I had to take some people home to the other house, and then I was to come back to my house. Well, the only other building in our area was another empty timeshare that was next to us that nobody was staying in. But it was right next to our building, and they had this big solid metal fence in their driveway. And we had this long driveway too that led to the main street. So I get home, it's like a midnight, and I decide to sit on the porch because when you're out there in Mount Shasta, you don't have the light contamination from the city. You can see the stars and all the constellations, and it's beautiful. And I says, I just want to sit here and stargaze for a while. You know, most everyone's asleep anyways. And so I'm sitting there on the porch by myself, and right to the left of me is this other house in their driveway. And I hear this slam on their metal gate of their driveway fence. And there's nobody for, miles at this point. I was like, what the hell is that? I look over and I'm like, that was right there. It wasn't like a fucking pine cone falling out of the tree. There's nobody over there. All my people in this house are inside asleep, and I'm up alone on the porch. But it sounded like somebody took a big rock and just hit the fence as hard as they could, like that much force, or like a stick maybe. So I says, okay, that was weird. And so I go inside. Flash forward the next night. We all up late, we're partying, we're having a good time, we're eating, we're drinking, because we work really hard all day on this retreat. And then at night, everybody likes to play games and hang out. And it's probably 11:30 midnight. I go to bed, and we're so exhausted because they worked me and my girlfriend really hard. I'm talking 14-hour days in the heat. We're working. So when I went to bed, I'm out. And it's 2 a.m. And I hear these slamming noises. I'm in the house now, sleeping. On the back porch, I'm hearing what sounds like somebody picking something up and dropping it over and over again and hitting stuff. And Lauren is wide awake, and she's sitting up and she's shaking me. She says, Daniel, wake up. Something's happening to the house. And I'm so tired. I couldn't get up. I couldn't pull myself out of like how sleepy I was. I said, it's probably one of the guests, because there was other people staying in the house. Someone's probably like awake cleaning or something. That's literally what I said. But I could hear all around me, that all around the house, it sounded like that stuff was being thrown at the house, like rocks and sticks. And I am so frustrated at myself that I didn't get up to investigate. I literally fell back asleep because we were that exhausted, like 4 days into the trip at this point. I couldn't get up. So when I wake up the next day, everybody meets in the living room for like a little morning meeting, right? And a bunch of the guys from the other side of the house, they're like, hey, we need to talk. And I'm like, what? And they're like, did you hear what happened last night? And I said, well, I thought somebody was awake, like cleaning or something, or on the back porch doing yoga. And they're like, no, our house was surrounded by what we think was like the Bigfoot or something. I said, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, there were like grunts and like a language being spoken, like words and another language that they didn't understand. And they said that they were hitting the metal garage door and throwing sticks and rocks at the house at all points. Like not just one direction, but like every side of the house was being interfered with. And I guess all 4 guys who had their own room on the other side of the house were all awake for like an hour listening to this. And nobody wanted to go outside because it seemed like something was seriously wrong. And I said, I heard it, but I didn't, I couldn't get up. I was like, almost like I was like, I just couldn't wake up. So they're like, yeah, something happened. So then it's just this whole trip, guys. Listen, I'm going to say this real quick. I actually talk about the whole, it was like 5 days of this on my YouTube channel, free to watch, where I go into detail about these 5 nights that we had with the Sasquatch. If anybody wants to go listen to it in depth, I'm going to summarize these next couple points because I don't want to, spend the whole time talking about this. But go to my YouTube, Daniel James, and then look up my YouTube, my Sasquatch encounters, and I've got audio recordings and all kinds of stuff where I recorded the next 5 nights. So flash forward to the following night. I'm Blackfoot Native American, and there was another Native American guy there named Alexi, and he said that he had come from a tribe where they acknowledged like the Sasquatch and the Bigfoot as like a whole species, like a community of people that they were all familiar with as their tribe. And I said, well, I grew up in Washington State where a lot of people had sightings, but that I'd only ever had one sighting in Big Flats, New York, when my car broke down. So we're getting home from game night, and Alexi says, hey, Daniel, what do you think we go outside? What do you think we walk down the driveway where it's dark? There's no other houses or people around us. All the guests are inside going to bed. What if we hang out, maybe do like a meditation, maybe just, bullshit a little while, but see if something happens? So I said, yeah, that'd be great. I'm really open to that. I feel really comfortable. He and I were becoming friends, and we got along really well. There was a good synergy. And so he and I decided to walk away from the house, and we went out down the driveway, and we stood in the dark against a big tree line. And we just stood there to see if we heard anything or if we saw anything or if anything would happen, because we were all pretty congruent that night these things had come up to the house and were banging on the house. So Alexi and I are standing there, and I says, hey man, when I was a little kid, I used to make this weird popping sound with my hands. It's kind of like a clap where you cup your hands together like this, and you can clap in a certain way into your mouth. And it makes this really, really loud popping sound. And he goes, dude, it's so crazy that you say that, because in my tribe, they actually said that the Sasquatch would make that popping sound as a communication tool. I said, no shit. I said, well, let me do it. So I cup my hands together. I make this popping sound, and I did 3 loud pops. It's super loud. And we're standing there. We wait a second. All of a sudden, we hear 3 loud knocks from the tree line back. Sounded like a stick hitting a tree trunk. Like 3 knocks back. I says, Alexi, you hear that? And he goes, yeah. I said, what type of animal knocks back 3 times? So I pop twice. We get 2 pops back. I said, okay, this is cool. I think something is happening here. So I pop 3 more times. We get 3 pops back. Then something comes flying out of the woods and lands close to us like a rock. It was like a rock. And he and I are looking at it and we're like, did you see that? And he's like, yeah. And so we're sitting there like, okay, I think we're having an experience here. I think we're having some kind of contact. What should we do? And he's like, I don't know. Let's just like give it, like send peace, send love, making sure it knows that we're not here out of threat. You know, we didn't have our cell phones out. I know I saw somebody asked, do you have video? I said, well, let me tell you about video. You think these things want to be filmed? So they don't. They don't want you to put your camera phone in their face. So Alexia and I deliberately left our cell phones in the house. So no, I don't have any video of that, because I felt like it would be more of an authentic offering of peace that I just go out there with myself and my friend who mean no harm than to bring my phone out there, you know, and trying to like become YouTube famous because I captured it. That wasn't our intention. So no, I don't have any video, and it's not important to me that I don't. I was there and I had some of the most amazing experiences of my life, which is enough for me. So then suddenly we hear one run out of the woods. Now, there was a tree line in front of us, a couple hundred feet, but before that, there was like some open grass that kind of almost looked a little bit more like a desert with these very large, like almost like 5-foot tall bushes. And we could hear one run through the bushes, that same heavy, like do doom, 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 doom runs. And so we says, okay, that might have been a little bit of a sign of aggression. And I don't know if they know that we come in peace. So I says, listen, there's something out there communicating with us directly. I feel very good about this. I feel very confident we had an experience. And I said, well, let's just call it a night. It's like 12:30 at this point. So we walk back into the house, go to sleep, and we shared with everybody, because we had I think 16 people here, our experience that we went out there and we had what we called as direct contact. Now, I'm not going to spoil the rest because I know that we're coming to an end here, but I would encourage you guys to go listen to my full vlog about this, because for the next several nights, Alexi and I kept going out and we kept having more encounters, to the point where I was feeding them food. I was leaving them food out and they were eating it. And I was able to determine certain things they liked to eat, certain things they didn't like. You'd be surprised what they didn't want to eat. And I will say this, please listen to the full interview, because I have audio recordings. I started to put my audio recorder in the window of the kitchen facing where I was putting the food out for them, and recorded the audio each night for the last 3 nights. And so I have audio findings. But the last night that we were there, I had a car full of people. There were 6 people in the van with us. And we would have game night at the other house, which was 5 minutes away. And we had to drive from their house back to ours down this dark road. And when we were coming home, the second to the last night of our trip, everybody was in like Bigfoot hysteria. Everybody was in like Bigfoot fever, because me and Alexi had been sharing everybody all these experiences and these encounters that we've been having for the last 4 or 5 nights. That when we were driving home, like I said, a van full of 6 people that can corroborate, that can vouch for this experience. We were talking about how crazy it was that Alexi and I had been interacting with Bigfoot for 5 days in a row. Coming down the street, and in the headlights of our van, we had a squatch in the middle of the road running down the street. And my whole van full of 6 people saw it. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to leave it at that, because there's more to that of what actually happened. And I would love for you guys to go and listen to it later. But I have a van full of 6 people who saw the creature in the street, in the headlights of our van right in front of us, on the second to the last night that they were there. So
thank you for sharing them stories.
Yeah. Pretty cool. I just want to ask this real quick, and then Sean, jump in. Are you familiar with let me think. Ronald Moorhead, the Sierra Sounds.
Vaguely, I think so. I'm not certain.
Doing
But
a show with him on the 26th.
awesome.
And, he's world renowned. He is. I mean, the Sierra Sounds were the first interpretation of the possibility of fact of the reality of these entities having some type of pattern of language, where it was checked and balanced by specialists that confirmed that they were picking up things that meant only nothing more than communication between each other.
Absolutely.
I would play it right now, but I don't want to take up some of your time from it. But here's the thing. I'd like for you to possibly listen in on that. And
Sure.
I might share your work with him when he comes on, because the only one that I know has language is Ronald. And now you're the second one to ever say that. Now, there may be other possibilities out there, but they haven't come to me to tell me about it. But on the 26th, Ron Moorhead will be on with me at 1:30 in the afternoon if you're available.
Okay.
I might tag you in just for a part of that scenario, because I would like you two guys to be able to possibly, share.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Now, one of the other
Absolutely.
things.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Everybody knows Ron. Look into who I'm talking about. You understand. He's got 40 some years in the thing, and he's a rock star. And, to come on smaller shows and so forth, he's always more than willing to help out and to share the message and give advice to TV shows and everything that he's learned through his past 40 some odd years. He's a rock star. Nevertheless, moments ago, we were talking about this. This is why I'm on the fence in ways: governmental, non-governmental, below level 7, creation, where Jenny's at, where I'm at, the things that we talk about. You're seeing a fully manifested creature in front of you.
Yes.
So they are, if they are parallel of a universe that they could just blend into ours, then they have a higher consciousness and energy and possibly technology, which is almost like scary to want to think.
Spirit tech. I call it spirit technology.
Yeah, I've heard that term before, but very good terminology. It puts you in that place of mind blowing. But I also had like Bill Rigby on. I've had Squatch Man on. And let me tell you, there is something of a story there that I'm waiting for him for this huge connection. But I also had a guy named Ernie Duvall on, where he was in front of this, seeing the color blue of the eyes, looking at all the same human characteristics of the hand that a human has. And we know that the mother, when they talk about this being, you have Dr. Ketchum, who says that the mother is human, the father is unknown. We also heard these same kind of things that go back biblically, that reflect to certain people of importance in the Bible, that they had that same type of genealogy. Are we dealing with a hybrid alien in human? And that takes us all over this platform. And I thought, I want to go there. I don't want to go. But when you hear about the fallen ones and this and the creators and ancient Greece, and then the tablets and biblical content that go back way beyond any book that was ever written. And even more factual than that, when you look at the books, they're done by authors that were done 1,000 years after most people's lives.
Right.
These were not done by the hands of the mans that lived within these times. And most of those people were more or less in some ways derelict. They didn't have the intelligence.
Right.
So as you say, you got to remove and take the deprogramming out of stuff.
That's
but
right.
There's also content that says a lot. I'm sorry, Sean. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to ask, do you got one more hour, Daniel?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so we got about 4 minutes left on the show. And then my show, Into the Night, is on from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Would you like to continue this conversation, or Michael? I know there's a lot that you have to say.
No, yeah, we could keep going. I have another hour.
What do you think, Michael?
Drive the car. I'm in the back seat.
We're just hanging out anyways.
Drive the car. I'm in the back seat. And for everybody listening, jump back on. We'll put it back into Pittsburgh Paranormal and follow us into the other show. We're going to take a 10-minute break. As Sean said, we will be right back. And with us tonight, this great, fascinating man. You're going to learn more about him in just minutes to come. Sean, thank you, Carnation, and whatever you got to do, brother.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Kathleen Wilson has one question, real quick. What is a shapeshifter?
Yes, it was. Was it a shapeshifter? Yes. And you can learn all about that by watching the YouTube vlog where I describe it in detail. It was you've only seen this in movies. That's all I can say.
All right. I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us on Chasing Prophecy tonight. Michael, thank you again for your outstanding job you did.
Who, me? It was all him.
Oh, I was going to get to him.
It was our guest.
Oh, my God, Daniel, you are great. And in 10 minutes at 9:10 p.m., we're going to start Into the Night, okay? Because it's a new time. They moved me up some. So at 9:10, hang around for 10 minutes. Get something to drink, get something to eat. You know, do what you got to do. Come back and listen to us on Into the Night. And on that note, good night, everybody. And have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.